Hi, guys and gals. Greg Howe, S9 Radio. Thanks again for tuning in and tagging along. And this is a short, kind of a tutorial. A while back, I gave most of the world its first glimpse of Radio Shack's first CB radio. That would be the 1959 CBK1 with the K designating kit. They're so rare, I've only seen the one I've got that was definitely in kit form. It looks like somebody had restored it along the way, as it had, I'm guessing it probably had real rubber insulation on the wire, and perhaps some of that had deteriorated. And of course, with vacuum tube sets and high voltage, that can get a little sketchy. So anyway, somebody had rewired the radio with all orange wire, and it was stranded wire. And I knocked the stranded wire saying, you know, stranded wire is a no-no. And a bunch of armchair quarterbacks lashed out at me. What for? There's no problems with stranded wire. And I agree. There's no problems with stranded wire for insensitive circuits like filament voltage for vacuum tubes, stranded wire for light bulbs, low impedance circuits. But anyways, in radio chassis and interconnects and whatnot, sensitive circuits like oscillators and RF circuits, it's just all kinds of surprises, and including audio circuits, and especially in vacuum tube sets. And the reason for this is as the vacuums warm up, especially if somebody's in a hot climate, this insulation tends to soften, and stranded wire will try to go to its natural, whatever the bend was, rather than what you may have had. And consequently, that wire wants to move around, whereas the solid hookup type wire generally likes to stay put. And here's an example of just moving a very sensitive high impedance circuit. Now watch this. I'm keyed up right now. We're listening to a service monitor. Look at that. Moving that wire less than a 32nd of an inch. So to all you armchair quarterbacks that have obviously, never built a radio, let alone rewired one, my advice is STF and listen and learn. Okay, guys and gals, once again, thanks for tuning in and tagging along. And in closing, I want to say I did not set this video up. This radio is actually being serviced, sitting flat on the bench, warmed up and whatnot. I flipped it up on its side, and all of a sudden I had this obnoxious oscillation that was not there before. And it just turned out to be a wire was a little warm and moved when being put into the vertical, just a 32nd, 64th of an inch. And once again, my advice in high impedance sensitive circuits, use a solid hookup wire. I'm old school, and the real old school was a glass cloth wire. We didn't have this synthetic insulation, and the wiring was much more heavy gauge. So it really stayed put. You didn't have to worry about this, but that's no longer the case. Solid hookup wire for your interconnects. It's just good sound practice when in high impedance circuits. So that's your little tip for the day or whatever. And with that, I will say 73, Greg Howe, S9 Radio.